Muskog District 10, Star, Middleton, and Nampa. Thank you for hearing House Bill 666. This legislation prohibits any individual or organization that is a provider of abortion from furnishing any materials or instruction relating to sex education materials. This is brought to you by Idaho Chooses Life and David Ripley. And why am I involved in this bill? Well, I believe in it, but also I was the originator of the bill that this is amending a few years ago. So happy to be involved in this. And I'm going to defer my time to Mr. Ripley, who is here, if the chairman allows. The legislature overwhelmingly approved language in 2021 session denying the use of public tax dollars for public schools and universities for the promotion of abortion. However, there's a potential loophole in the law that allows the abortionists, keep in mind abortion is illegal with proper exceptions in Idaho, allowing abortionists to send materials or to come in and teach in our schools. They may even be from out of state for free. This does not limit in any way what may be taught or materials that may be used, except it limits those who may provide that, because we don't want criminals providing things into our schools. And that is the purpose of this bill. With that, I defer to David Ripley if allowed.
Mr. Ripley, will you yield? Introduce yourself for the record. Who you represent?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm David Ripley, Executive Director of Idaho Chooses Life, and I want to thank the committee and Representative Skog for helping with this legislation. It's a modest bill, but I think it has tremendous impact in terms of protecting our children. The fact of the matter is that there are organizations that seek to influence and to move a social agenda, especially a sexual agenda, directed at our children. And that agenda is disguised as healthcare services. I think the most important piece of this legislation is protecting children from being enticed into relationships with organizations and with the players in those organizations that have, I think, a very radical and objectionable social agenda. There's no doubt that having a teacher invite an organization into a classroom to provide sexual education, or a school district, provides a definite impression to those children that this is information coming from a trustworthy source. And I believe that given the agendas of many of the organizations that are involved in promoting abortions, that is simply not true and is not healthy for children in the state of Idaho. The social agenda of those organizations are actually in direct conflict with the express purposes and intents of this legislature with respect to proper and appropriate education for minor children. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask the committee to support this legislation. I would ask you, in the House committee, there was a question with respect to whether or not this legislation would prohibit certain viewpoints from being provided in a public school setting. And the answer to that is no. We were also asked in the House committee whether or not this would prohibit certain medical providers who were not affiliated with various organizations, for example, a physician at St. Luke's who happened to perform an abortion, would that person be prohibited from providing education or curriculum to a public school classroom? The answer to that question is no. A medical provider in the state of Idaho, a physician at St. Luke's, for example, who is called upon to save the life of a mother in a complicated pregnancy situation, who may have to perform an abortion to take care of that mother, would not become, by that action, an abortion provider, nor would that person be prohibited from participating in a classroom instruction if invited to do so. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for any questions.
Senator Rucki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ripley, I'm going to read you the language of the change, and I'd like you to tell me where the exception is that you just mentioned for a doctor who provides an abortion. No public school district shall allow any individual or organization that is a provider of abortion to furnish any materials or instruction relating to sex education curricula. Where's the exemption that would allow that doctor from St. Luke's to come and teach sex ed
Mr. Ripley.
or provide materials?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I think the answer I would give you is a commonsensical one. A doctor who saves that mother's life does not become an abortion provider, as commonly understood as to those organizations that are in fact providing abortions as their primary mission.
Senator
Mr.
Rucki.
Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ripley, I don't see the words as their primary mission. I don't see the words save a mother's life. I don't see any of that. I see provider of abortion. Doesn't say provider of abortions. It says provider of abortion. I don't see any exceptions. I'm reading the plain language that you drafted. So help me understand how to read it according to the way you read it.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Ripley.
Senator, I think I've made myself clear on the point that, in fact, we are talking about abortion providers and organizations that are providing abortions as their primary service or central service versus a doctor who happens to perform an abortion in the course of his or her duties.
Senator Rucki. I don't see any. Senator Anton? No? We do have one more signed up to testify, Misty Tolman. Welcome to committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Misty Carpini-Tolman, and I'm the State Director for Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates, Idaho. We strongly oppose House Bill 666, which prohibits Planned Parenthood or anyone affiliated with an abortion provider from creating materials or speaking about sexual education in any public school. This bill limits young people's access to comprehensive sex education that is vital for their health and safety. This bill would narrow the pool of sexual health experts and educators in Idaho, making it even more challenging for our youth to access accurate information about their sexual health. It could even go so far as to prohibit hospital staff from providing a guest presentation if they work for a hospital that provides abortion, even in the most limited circumstances allowed under the abortion ban exemptions. Planned Parenthood and other healthcare professionals are well equipped to provide young people with the skills they need for a lifetime of healthy relationships, and goals. Idaho schools are already desperately behind in providing young people the sex education they need to live healthy lives. Only 20% of high schools teach the CDC recommended topics in their sex education curriculum. This bill would exacerbate an already dire situation, depriving our youth of essential information about sexual health, consent, and healthy relationships. Let us not forget that comprehensive sex education is associated with delayed initiation of sex, fewer sexual partners, and increased use of contraceptives. It equips young people with the skills they need to navigate the complexities of adulthood, fostering critical thinking and empowering them to make informed decisions about their bodies and relationships. Idaho should be making it easier for young people to access sex education, not harder. Legislation should empower people by giving them the education they need to live healthy lives and enhance their freedom, as opposed to promoting shame and stigmatization. Unfortunately, this bill is another effort to shame, judge, and stigmatize anyone associated with providing abortion as an option at the cost of our youth's access to medically accurate, comprehensive sex education. Please vote no.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Winthrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Ms. Tolman, or Deli Carpini Tolman, sorry. Just for a quick comment, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank you for testifying and sharing. I don't find that you have a radical social agenda, and I appreciate what you do offer our state, so thank you.
Senator Anton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we should be clear here that under the Senate rules, we don't allow each other to impugn the intent of what someone's doing in legislation. I don't think we should be allowing a witness to do it either.
Point taken.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Winthrop, be careful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel that we need to be that consistently, because I think the previous testifier was using the same,
Let's
talking about radical social agendas is not
Let's,
complimentary.
let's just move on. Thank you for your testimony. Don't have any others signed up. Representative Skog.
If I may, Chairman, I'd like to refer to
Whoever wants to close.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just be brief. I neglected to mention in my previous testimony that one of the concerns that led us to bring this legislation had to do with a lawsuit that is now working its way through the federal court system that relates to a law this body passed last session that deals with prohibiting the transport of minors across state lines to obtain abortions. In that lawsuit, there were several plaintiffs.
Can we focus on this legislation?
Yes.
Mr. Ripley.
Yes, sir, I am. In that complaint, the various parties alleged in their belief that children had a constitutional right to make sexual decisions and healthcare decisions on their own facility without parental involvement and without parental notification. And in those various court documents, these organizations made it quite clear that they had almost contempt for parental involvement in the...
Mr. Ripley, let's talk to House Bill 666, please.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the issue of providing materials in classrooms. So let's stick to the legislation.
Yes, sir. I believe that this legislation is designed to protect children from those untoward influences and those outside agendas. With that, I would ask for your support.
Don't see any other questions. Committee, House Bill 666 is before us. Senator Winder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we send House Bill 666 to the floor with recommendation it do pass.
Motion by Senator Winder, second by Senator Taves, to House Bill 666 be sent to the Senate floor with the due pass recommendation. Discussion on the motion. Senator Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I think Senator Rucky's question was really important in that when we pass legislation, we look at the ink on the page, and the courts interpret the ink on the page. They don't look at that's what they've told us over and over. And I do not see in the language what Mr. Ripley was discussing. It in the plain language, it says individual organization. So I do think that would prohibit anyone. And this legislature did say that somebody who is raped, a victim of incest, molar ectopic pregnancy, or certain death of the mother can get an abortion. Well, you have to have the police report and the other things, but this legislature ruled that, and I wouldn't think then that we would say that's shameful for them to do. And so I think the plain language would forbid the St. Luke's person or whoever it is, and the medical group that they're associated with from doing so. And I think lastly, I would say, I don't think that people providing comprehensive sexual health education are torrid. And I think that was, and to call them criminal is, I think, inappropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be voting no.
Don't see any other discussion. Those in favor of sending House Bill 666 to the floor with a due pass, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Senators Ruckie and Winter will be recorded as voting no. The motion carries.